Hello and welcome to the October 2020 layout update from the Trent Valley Railway. In this update I'll show you the progress on the container depot scenery work. I've made a start on fitting those plasticard sheets at the very back and also spray painting them in the concrete colour. I've had to modify the DCC sound in this Network Rail HST. And finally, I've started also some work on the backscene boards. The last piece I've put in, and that does need fixing to the plasterboard wall there. Welcome to this month's layout update. There's a few things to get through, so let's jump straight into this and first of all look at the work around the container depot. As a reminder from the previous layout update, I'd started work on the plasticard strips around the edge of the container rails on both sides of those depot lines. I've progressed on with this and will now just go through where I've got up to, as well with the cork underlay at the back of the depot area. I've been cutting down these 2mm plasticard sheets to come as white, and they've then been cut down to size in terms of the length of an A4 sheet, and have been cut down either side of these rails on the outside of the container depot, which are for the container crane. So I've continued this all the way to the other end of the container depot, right towards the very back. For the time being, I've just taken out the buffer stops as not to sort of accidentally break those, and the only train left in here is this Malcolm Rail loco, which I can easily move around when I've been doing the work. So when those container rails stop on the outside, I've then got extra bits of plasticard then to fill in the back area to the very back wall. I've also then added in some extra cork sheet at the very back of the depot and up to the edge of the walls of the garage. Now, I'd already knew that on the baseboard I'd put down a 4mm cork underneath the container depot rails, and so I've obviously then added on another 2mm for the plasticard sheeting, which means that the cork underlay at the very back is 6mm thick, which means it's provided a very nice flush finish to the same level as the plasticard sheets I've put on each side of the container rail. I've now got that nice flush finish at the very back between the cork and the extra bit of plasticard that I've put down on top of the 4mm cork underneath the tracks. So I've also been working in this area to just paint in between the wooden sleepers on the container rails on this one here, and also that one there, for the entire length of the depot. And the reason for that is because to create this sort of hard standing concrete area that you see at most sort of container depots, I'm going to add another 2mm piece of plasticard on top of the inside section here in the crane area, and then also at the very back, where I'll then stack up the containers and the reach stackers and the lorries. So either side of the container rail there will be a 2mm plasticard piece of sheet, which I need to cut out, and also I'm going to spray paint it into the right sort of concrete colour there. So I've got to do that now for the whole length of the container depot. And if we come to the very back as well, where I've put in the extra bit of cork and we've got these extra sections here and there. I'll also be adding that sort of hard standing concrete area on top of that as well. Each of these plasticard sheets have been cut down one by one. I've put them into portrait next to one another so that I get a straight edge for when I then put these down and glue them next to each other along the back here. I've sprayed them up in a tan spray paint colour, which has given this nice effect and blend of different sort of concrete colours and a bit of dust effectively on top of them, for when I then have the area with the containers and the lorries etc. on top of this. Now that I've made a start on fitting those plasticard sheets at the very back and also spray painting them in the concrete colour, I've glued them down and also fitted them, and I'm just starting now the next sections for the inside of the container crane area and also for the other single rail on the other side. But before I continue with that, I've diverted to slightly do something else, which is to fit the backscene boards, and these are this tall, which is 51 centimeters in height. I will have here a whole load of containers that will sit in front of the backscene, and the most difficult bit that I've had to negotiate here is this middle section, because this has to go around the breeze blocks in the centre here. So I've constructed these out of some 3mm plywood sheets and then some PSE timber behind it as just some supporting framework, and then at the top of here I've used the Grip It plasterboard fixings just to screw them in at the very top, and at the bottom, if we just move these out the way, the board then sits just above those plasticard sheets, and the plasticard sheets goes all the way to the back wall. So I've got those sections sorted, and I've also got the other section as well at the very back of the depot. So again, same height, fix those two into the breeze block in the corner, and then I've just fixed it into a small block of wood, because this then in this area for the track starts to fall away as it goes back down the incline to the fiddle yard. And here, excusing the tools, there will be the tunnel portal, a nice little area above it of a bit of wood and green space, and then that will blend in hopefully to the back scene image that I'll have here. At the very back of the container depot, I've taken the buffer stops out for the time being so they don't get damaged, and there'll probably be some sort of backing in there to an industrial unit, and obviously the container crane will stop before it gets to the end there anyhow. So that whole corner scene should fit quite nicely with then the trains coming out of the tunnel portals alongside the container depot, and then I'll have the container crane operating in the back scene here. And one of the other issues I've had, I need to make sure that when I put a back scene in this area, is for the container crane not to hit the backboard here, because there's only a very thin bit of 3mm plywood that just sits in front of this breeze block compared to the timber framework that then is either side of it. So that should keep that nicely in position, and it just finishes at the end of there, where I can then widen the back seam back out to the very back wall. So I've been working on this Network Rail HST with the DCC sound in this power car, and that's because when I've had this previously running, after a certain amount of time it heats up the decoder far too much and has blown some of the decoders that I was using in there, and that's because of the power draw that was coming in through the PCB board and then coming to both the lights and the sound. So I've split those sources of outputs up now between obviously the motor draw as well in there, the sound and the lights. There's now 2 decoders in there, and I've put the PCB board in from the dummy car. So let's just take a quick look inside this chassis of the HST. If we have a look inside the chassis, then first thing you may note is actually the big black dot that's on the underside of the chassis, which is where the previous decoder has burnt through slightly onto the bodywork. But what I've done now is I've updated the, as I said, PCB board to be the dummy one, so this does not have on there connections directly to the motor. The motor is then with this Bachmann decoder there, and then in the packaging over the side there, which is in the effectively the protective casing there that comes in the TTS boxes, is the decoder there with the sound on, and that then connects up the speaker and the lighting module at the front. So that's basically how the dummy car works, and so far that's not overheated. So let's just watch a few shots of this HST and Network Rail livery running past the container depot. So what I also showed you there is I've also upgraded the speakers to the bass enhanced speaker box at the back, and so this is the same for both of the power cars on this unit, and I'm now quite happy how this is running, and so far, touch wood, it hasn't decided to burn out the chip. The board at the very back here, as I mentioned earlier, is the last piece that I've put in, and that does need fixing to the plasterboard wall there. And now that I've tested as well that there's enough room between the container crane and that backscene board, I can fix that in and now continue with hopefully getting the rest of the concrete plasticard sheeting in place on both sides of the rails for the container crane, and then look to hopefully get the custom back scenes that I've got on order. Hopefully they arrive and I can start to put those into place on the boards that I've built, and then you'll be able to see how this scene will hopefully start to develop, and also around the tunnel portal area here, and then who knows how far I'll get in the next month, but maybe starting to also get time to ballast the container depot lines there after I've put down the concrete plasticard sheets. So that's all for this month's layout update. Keep an eye out for the next one and other videos for the Trent Valley Railway. Thanks for watching. Cheers.